So I'm very happy to welcome Clémentine Lalande with us. She's the CEO and founder of Once dating app. That's how you call it, right? Or just Once?
Yeah, we say once.
You say Once, okay. That's new concept in the dating sector because they are they have launched the concept of slow dating to change with all this swiping and very, I would say, fast consuming dating solution that are now very, very trendy. And so, Clémence, do you want to present yourself?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, everyone. Super happy to be here today, and especially super happy to be part of 50inTech. I love what those crazy ladies and guys are doing, and I think is really, really cool to very openly and modestly sharing learnings. Learnings doesn't mean that you have the wisdom, right? So I'm certainly not going to share like what the rule, whatever, to beat this crisis that I don't even know if this crisis is going to kill me at the end. Okay, but certainly is just we happen to kind of test a few things that have been successful in those last weeks. So I presented a few, I put together just a few slides just to share it with you guys and ladies, and try to be as neat and short as possible, and to leave time to take questions afterwards.
Yeah. So just in terms of rules, this is the first time we're doing this format, so allowing everyone to speak and show their faces. So don't hesitate to open your video so that we can really share all together. So for the beginning, I will shut your microphone so that Clémentine can really expose her learnings and tips and stories, etc. And after that, we'll have a Q&A. At any time, you can raise your hands using this emotion feature at the bottom of your screen. So raise your hands or clap or say anything, and Clémentine will be able to see it, but I will be moderating the workshop. So if at some point there are questions or things that you don't understand, just raise your hands or talk in the chat, and I will open the microphone one after one so that it stays quiet during the workshop.
Yes. Yes, please be quiet. No, I'm just kidding. No, like it's just trying to present. Okay, there we go. Can you guys see my screen? Is that okay this way? Yeah, I guess you can see yourselves probably.
Yes.
Is that okay? Okay.
Well, I can see it. So
okay, perfect.
Yep. Confirming in the chat. Very good.
Cool. Yeah. So oh my God, this. So here is like just throwing myself at myself. So just to kind of give you a little bit of background of who I am. Some of you guys know me, I saw in the audience. I'm an engineer by training. I started my career as a strategy consultant. I was a manager at Boston Consulting Group. Then I was an investor for a few years in various contexts. So I did classical venture capital, but also impact investing in developing countries. And that all lead me very logically to online dating, as you can gather. It's been just an opportunity to be part of a startup, and with a few people that I knew. It was the very early days, obviously, of Once. And I was very seduced by the fact that, as Gaëlle explained, Once is a very, it's a very annoying player in the space. So like we really try to do things really differently as what online dating does traditionally. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about this. So that's been my journey. And in the meantime, I also founded another dating app, which is called Pickable. It's a feminist dating app, and it's also a lot of fun. And yeah, one thing leading to another. Pickable was sold back to Once, and then I become the CEO of Once Dating Group. So now I'm running this portfolio of dating apps. And so very briefly, just to give you a sense, we 9 million users worldwide. We're operating in 8 countries. We're actively marketing. My team is split between Paris and London, and we create a few 100 million matches a year. And we're very lucky to be one of the successful apps. And it's also a business, obviously, and dating apps are within the profitable apps, and so something that we're also very proud of, because obviously, we raised money and we need to prove that we have a scalable and a profitable business model. Yeah, so that's kind of the starting point. And maybe one thing that's about the belief is we believe that online dating is an amazing opportunity, but we believe, and I personally believe, having this experience as a woman, that right now it's very basic. So it's the jungle, basically. So it's like the only thing you could do on dating apps is really go to a gigantic supermarket and feel like a piece of meat on the stand of a butcher. That's pretty much what you can do. And especially as a woman, it's very frustrating to see that the only thing you can do virtually is being spammed, getting messages all the time, being completely floated by your matches that end up being on average conversation, or very aggressive and very sexual conversation, which is also fine at some moment of your life. But my general impression is that people are really, really fed up with classical dating apps. So at once what we try to do is to completely change the paradigm. And so it means we kill the volume aspect. So it's one match a day. And one match a day means that suddenly you have less choices, meaning you have also more time to focus on your choices. You have quality interaction because you have also the attention of the person in front. And we think that is kind of a way to start this positive circle, to create the good conditions for the beautiful stories to happen. So that's kind of for the philosophy, okay, of who we are. And let's just be very clear, it's not as if it was that simple, right? Because it's already a very difficult business in itself. I'm not, gonna enter so much into the details, but obviously, it's a business that is extremely competitive. First, it's a churn business. Okay, so when you go on a dating app, by nature, you're not going to be single forever. Okay, so when you find love, I lose you as a customer, right? So there's this constant tension between you being happy and the app being happy, in a sense, if I'm very cynical. And on top of this, we're dealing with very personal stuff. I have the responsibility to define if this person you're going to like him or her or not. And so that's why dating apps are bringing already a lot of frustrations. So when the COVID crisis hit, it was really interesting to see that number of people had really extreme reactions. I had a lot of friends calling me like, "Oh, but how are you gonna handle this?" Because one of my very good friends explicitly told me, "But Tinder is gonna be bankrupt," because you can't just you're not going to go on the app and plan for your dates for tonight. And I have to say, we were also very, just concerned of what was going to happen, right? Because nobody has been experiencing a crisis of this magnitude. So as anyone else, as a CEO of a business, I went through this checklist, which I think everyone as a business leader went through, and I have to say, and obviously would be happy to take questions about this. I was pretty lucky to be within the businesses that have been not so affected by the crisis for many reasons. The first reason is that I'm in a digital vertical. Okay, so I'm not in a tourism or culture or any kind of like verticals, or food restoration has been directly impacted by the crisis. And the second aspect is that since I took over almost a year ago, I restructured the company at many levels. And we happen to be a fully remote team. So on top of doing a job that is fully remotely doable, we were already in a setup that was extremely flexible. So and we also were very, you know, on top of those elements, we are profitable. We are profitable since a few months. So that to say that going through this list has not been as painful as it has been for some of my peers, certainly. But certainly, you know, I had the disadvantage of being a very small team is that also I have a higher risk, right? So I had to think about, what if one of us gets sick? What if my CTO disappears for 4 weeks? Okay, so that's the kind of scary thoughts we had. So we organized a numbers of backups, contacted a few of our, you know, tech friends, or yeah, just imagining some solutions to prepare for this. And we were actually lucky that after a few days of the lockdown announcements, so typically first in Italy, then in France, so the curves went like this for 48 hours. So virtually we lost 30% of activity the first 2 days. And I think everyone was in shock, as anyone else, you know, everyone adapting to what's happening and the strategies that they were going to use for the next weeks. And then it went back up. And that's the effect of, you know, the fact that digital lives, digital usage increase, and also that actually dating is something that people do when they're locked in. So I'm going to talk more about this. So this is kind of like this was kind of, you know, mid-March, and the first thing we decided to do, it was actually, so a week after the Italian lockdown and before the French lockdown, is to try to anticipate, okay, what's going to happen. And I think I've received, as probably many of you did, surveys, you know, emails on all kind of directions about, okay, what is going to be the COVID impact, what are users going to think, some polls, some you know, try to pulse checks, etc. And to be honest, nobody knows, right? In everything I do at once, what I've really tried to do is try to be a brand that is authentic and opinionated and caring, okay? And especially because we deal with the love, you know, and the emotions of people. So at the moment you do something that doesn't sound caring and authentic, it sounds so wrong. I mean, at least for me, that's not, I cannot run a business like this. That doesn't work. So I was like, okay, what do you do when you're single and you're locked down and you don't know for how long you're gonna, and initially it was supposed to be 2 weeks, but working a lot with Italy and Germany, and especially with Italy, I knew that it was probably not going to be 2 weeks, because those guys were already locked in for 4 weeks and they had no sign of improvement. And so that's how a little bit, you know, the singing process that we started, try to put words on this. So being single and locked down is a bit the double penalty, right? And so what do you do? Are you staring at your wall the whole day? Are you going to go to your app to be entertained? Are you going to go to your app because maybe your match of the day is going to be the person who's going to make a joke and you're going to make you feel better about, you know, the freaking whole situation? It's probably as many situations as I have users, because it's very difficult to put, you know, everyone in one bucket. But I thought certainly people are certainly going to want, you know, are going to be in need of solutions and positive news, at least positive news. And also very modestly saying, you know, I'm not in the healthcare sector. I would love to, but I'm not, you know, at war in the front line. But what I can do is I can try to bring my piece of the solution, or at least try to build something. And so that's a little bit the red line that I followed in the several actions that we took. So I'm going to talk about 4 things that we did. The first thing, I mean, everyone has received probably emails or notification lists this way, and so we did okay, that was March 17th.
So just at the beginning of the lockdown in France.
Yeah, the first day of the lockdown, and especially because we hadn't done it in Italy, probably because we're all French, so when the crisis hit France, we kind of realized a bit more what was going to happen. So basically telling our users, look, stay home, right? It seems obvious, but people, especially singles, were asking themselves, oh, okay, so but should I meet her or should I meet him? Like, it's just, for me, it's not the same because I'm single. I was like, no, like, please, we as ones, we tell you it's really important that you stay home. And on top of this, if you are at once, you're looking for something serious or you're looking for a beautiful relationship. So if she's the one or he's the one, I can tell you this, it can wait for a few weeks or a few days. And it's really important that, collectively for you, for your community, that you stay home. That was the kind of first move. It was a bit of a tactical move. And I think it was good that we did it very quickly, because then everybody went probably super annoyed by the kind of 75 email they got on the topic. I'm not sure, but yeah, that's what we did. The second thing we did, I decided to do this on the Saturday, the 14th, which was 2 days before the lockdown announcement in France. So I was actually, I'm a bit ashamed to say this, but I was having dinner with my husband. So now I'm not single anymore. I have a husband and I have 2 young kids. And we're like, okay, so we're going to be locked down, definitely. So we have to go and have a last dinner before we being locked down for weeks. So I don't even remember how we did this really, but like we were just downstairs, and I was thinking a bit kind of, okay, so how are we gonna do this? Like how is the life of singles gonna look like? And like, they're not going to be able to go and follow the normal rules, right? Like when you date someone, you go and have a drink at 3 p.m., something like that. You don't do a drink at 7, because, then it looks like kind of, already a bit too committed. So you do a 3 p.m. and then you book something for 4 p.m. so that if the guy or the girl is annoying, then you can leave, right? That's kind of the regular dating etiquette. So now none of this is going to happen. And then so we were having dinner, and then at 11 p.m. we got a notification from Le Monde saying all bars and restaurants are going to close then at midnight. I was like, shit, this is going to close in 1 hour. So we're like, okay, like, great that we had this last restaurant. And we're like, okay, so we need to find something that people can still have some kind of a date, but without going out. So we're like, okay, but it needs to be video then. And video in dating app is interesting, because then you don't have to give your number, you don't have to give your WhatsApp, when you don't know the person. So it's a good way to kind of just try to bring the intimacy level one step at a time. Okay, so we decided this. I kind of sent a Slack message virtually the Saturday night. We worked on this on the Monday, and the product was out on March 29th, which was 14 days after.
And you were the first.
And we were the first. Yeah, we were the first.
So you've been beating the gigantic application solutions like Mythic or
So the first thing is like, so for some of you, for those of you who don't know the dating space, and that's you're lucky. There's this one big group which is called IAC, and they own Match.com, Mythic, Tinder, Plenty of Fish, and 150 brands. And then there's kind of 4 groups like this, like really the big ones. They generate 95% of the value in the dating space. And so those guys, IAC, they sent a press release the day I sent my press release, and they said, "Oh, we're doing a test with Plenty of Fish on the video. It's going to be available in America next week, and for the rest of the world, end of April." I was like, "End of April? You guys are crazy!" So yeah, it's been really cool that we've been able to produce this very quickly. It's been a completely crazy week to be able to do this, but yeah, I like.
Yeah, you made a super quick move that other big one maybe can't do, because they need.
That's probably yeah. I mean, we have a very kind of strong server-driven architecture. So that means we are able to be live very quickly with limited risk, meaning with flag and activations, and in all languages at the same time, which typically bigger brands that have kind of more web-based infrastructure don't do as fast as us. So that's one of the advantages of being small, and also have to be very fair, there was some of the blocks, so typically mutual consent. So as anything we do, obviously we want this to be quality. So it's not as if I want once now to be suddenly invaded by random people calling you in video, right? You don't want that. So it was based on mutual consent. So both players of the connection need to say that they're okay for live video, and then only then you can connect. So, and this module of double consent, we had already worked at that for another feature. So that was something that helped. The other secret was kind of just rely on a third party doing video, obviously, plus being super fast in terms of kind of making choices to have a very simple product first and then work on improving the video. So so yeah, so that kind of the second move. And I consider this really as content, and I'll tell you why. Because obviously the product is important, but telling the story about this is even more important, right? And that created really cool content for our marketing. And so that's what I call have an opinion and voice it, because the more we developed this feature, the more we onboarded users and got feedback from them. We also sent a survey by notification to our base, and we got 5,000 users who sent us their feedback within 24 hours. The more we kind of built the intimate conviction that what we were doing was not just a tactical move, it was really kind of the roots of a strategy that was going to last. Because if you listen to any expert, they tell you social distancing, this is going to be for the next 2 years. Okay, it's not as if like this is going to be disappearing this summer. And I think, you know, slowly but surely everyone is convinced about this. And so that means a lot. That means probably dating is going to be affected in the long run. And so we've been forming a lot of opinions about this, also kind of giving tips about how to date, because the whole dating etiquette that I described is going to be impacted. I'm pretty convinced about this. We've been leveraging a lot of this, and I'm going to tell you in a second how. Maybe let me actually just move to this directly. So we do a lot of PR, okay, public relations. That's something that is a bit of it's super key, super central to the strategy of a dating app, and to our dating app in particular, because we don't have millions to spend like the others. Okay, so I cannot do building takeovers like Bumble do, or I don't have 10 million to spend on TV like Meetic has or Tinder has, right? And so PR is a good way, and especially when you're a brand that has an opinion. So I have a network of PRs in 4 different languages that I feed regularly with stories. And since the crisis, since the beginning, we sent 4 press releases, just to be very concrete. One about the live video, one about the learnings and the first data we got, one more lifestyle-ish with tips of how to use, you know, your app during confinement. Are you doing a Netflix date, or are you cooking together? This kind of things that we learn from users. And one with a bit more content, deeper, about how we think that the dating space is going to be impacted in the long term, based on the survey that we did. And so,
the results are amazing.
Yeah, the results are pretty, yeah.
So
it can look pretty bad when I say this, but like, oh, those guys are just looking for attention. If I'm very honest with you, if you had asked me the question a month ago, I would never have said that we would do this. But the reality is, like, I think media are just desperate for positive stories, because, you know, like all this is, you know, counting terrible news all newspaper long. And so we did 2 national TV. So my mom is very happy about this, and my grandmother as well. In France, but also got Bild.de, which is, you know, obviously very big in Germany, and really cool newspaper in Italy too. Just covering the fact that, you know, there are startups that are, you know, taking their part and trying to be part of a solution while everybody is suffering. You know, businesses try to do their part and bring innovations. So that's kind of been the PR part. Maybe another another example of content initiatives that last one actually that I launched in those last weeks is a podcast. So we have already a podcast which is called Love It in the Air, and it's been live since November. I can see on the chart, November last year. And the concept of the podcast is to tell love stories. So couples who met on once contacted us, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. Actually, I really want to listen to their stories. And before, what we were doing is just, kind of as anybody else, we're just taking beautiful pictures and put them on the website, a bit like, when you're hunting. So, and I was like, this is so sad. It's actually, I would love to listen to those stories. So it's a podcast with 15 minutes for each couple, and they both tell their side of the story and how that kind of, it clicked, what happened. And every story is different, obviously, and it's all very emotional and, it's full of kind of, like that. And so that was the podcast that we did. And I was like, okay, so maybe we can use this podcast to do something else, because this is really this is really a freaking interesting question. Like, how do you deal with COVID when you're single? All kind of questions. Okay, so do you want to date, or is it too frustrating? Do you want to meet someone? Are you going to meet someone secretly? Are you going to give some meeting points, at the fridge part of the supermarkets, or are you not going to do this because you absolutely don't want to, break the rules of confinement? Who are you going to meet afterwards? How do you deal with your sex life? You kind of erotic, or this is. So I was like, okay, this is actually a really, really interesting question. So I sent an email to our user base, and we're like, who is interested? Who would love to share his or her story? And so I've been recording. I think I've recorded podcast number 6 this week. It's 100% remote. Nobody has been put at risk in this process. Purely over the phone. The sound quality is a bit kind of. I mean, we do what we can, but I think it's okay. And the result is like the audience is actually, you can see it on the chart. The audience of the singles podcasts is at least 2 times, sometimes 3 times more than the average audience of the podcast.
So maybe you can also tell how you build this audience, because so we understood how you got the users to give their stories, which is great. But then did you, is that just organic growth that you had, or did you spend some budget on that?
As we are like 15,000 listeners now. It's the data I show is just Spotify, and we have other platforms. Mm-hmm. So the vast majority is organic, because I never put any money into this. What I do is I leverage the once base, so I send some mailings. So not every time, like my philosophy is try to avoid spamming people, but when we launched the podcast and when we launched the single podcast, it's called Confine-toi plus moi in mm-hmm. French. We do this. So it's purely
organic, no money spent on that.
No, absolutely no money. I wouldn't even know really how to spend money to. I mean, like just business-wise, it would be, because it's a bit, it's purely branding in a sense, right? It doesn't bring people on the app. What I just hope virtually is just people having a great time listening to great content and speaking about it if they had a great time. And to be honest, that's also why I chose a branding that was not Once podcast or something like the By Once is very, very small, because I didn't want this to be one of another brand podcast who are just trying to sell their stuff, Mm-hmm. So obviously, like the guys, when I said the love stories, they met on Once. So indirectly, I'm obviously, making a proof of concept that people actually meet on Once and are actually happy. But that's really not the point, because if you listen to the podcast, and that's what people tell me as a feedback, like, oh, it's actually really nice. It's actually not branded. So I told them, you don't tell me. I don't want to record anything about how Once is great. Okay. So I just want to listen to your story. I just want to listen I just wanted to listen for the couples to this moment where the emotions started, you know, like, because when you meet, it's simpler, right? Because you have the full person in front of you. But when you're online, it's a bit different. So that was the intention, and so yeah, purely organic.
So within few weeks, you've been launching a new feature. You've been launching a new branded content, which is not completely branding, but it's branded content. You've been getting amazing clippings. So you've been basically working on both tactical and like awareness, long-term marketing, which is quite amazing. We've been talking for like 34 minutes since the beginning. Maybe people, if you have questions, please, you know, just show up in the chat area, and I will open your microphone unless you prefer to speak, which is fine. So we have a question from David. David, I can open your microphone if you want. You can speak now.
Yeah, this speaks to how things have evolved for once. I'm hearing that there was something of a drop initially with people connecting less, and then things have gone better. And I'm wondering if things have gone even better than before lockdown, with maybe people taking more time before meeting and maybe getting more satisfaction of their dates.
Yeah, no, it's a fair question. I think it's really interesting. So the short answer is usage has increased by 30% roughly. So usage as activity. So daily activities that have increased by 30%. And if you look a little bit deeper of what people do on the app, they have more connections. So they have more conversations, and they have longer conversations. And the conversations are typically as well 35% longer. And which is interesting because when you ask, so when I send a survey asking them how do you deal with dating during COVID, what users tell me is like 60% of them still have the intention to fall in love, which I think is pretty massive if you think about this, right? Because like you would think that it's just a good way to just not be annoyed, but you would try to be such in a different mood than your regular life that you, but it seems that it's pretty essential need. But as per, until you answer your question about user satisfaction, it's very difficult to measure. Very difficult to measure in general in the dating space. So usage is a good metric. And revenues is also, so we're pretty lucky to see that.
And it's quite interesting to measure that over the long term. Maybe see that taking more time to meet someone can maybe have more results in the end. I mean, LoveWays. We have another question from Ilaria, which your microphone is on, Ilaria, if you want to talk.
Thank you, Gail. Thank you. Yes, Clémentine, I have a question. You were saying that you release, for example, your new feature before your competitors. And I was wondering whether in times of crisis, you kind of talk more with your competitors and you become kind of a coalition to understand what are the best practices, or if, on the other hand, like crisis makes competition even tougher, and so you avoid sharing best practices or what you can do.
That's really interesting. It's a really good question. So, and especially in the dating space, which, and as I mentioned, I worked in various other industries before. So this industry is pretty tough. It's damn tough, really, because it's so concentrated. So there's one association that tries to gather best practices and has enough leverage to be including the big ones. And they try to share best practices, but really what everybody does is they're watching each other and trying to, do the same. So I'm pretty sure that the fact that we've been launching, live videos so quickly has been a bit a needle for some of those guys. And I know they're watching closely what we do. So I have had zero direct contact with competition whatsoever. I'm just reading it from the news. The other thing that is interesting, though, is that there's been this kind of like double trend communicating about numbers. You know, everyone, it's a bit tricky, right, to communicate about your numbers, and especially if you're benefiting in a sense from the crisis, right? Because like, and I can tell you, as a dating app, you already, you can be hated so much already, okay, as gambling or you know, this is the kind of industry we're talking about, unfortunately, which is trying to change because the perception is really terrible. And so there's been this one website, very unknown, who's been telling and sending press releases to everyone saying like, oh, the dating sites are doing terrible, they lost 30% of their traffic. It's been pretty much covered. And I feel this was the trigger of everyone, each player in the industry, then communicating. And Tinder has been communicating early April that they hit their record ever of swipes, so 3 billion of swipes, I think. I don't know, I'm pretty sure the fact that others have communicated, and especially negatively, have led them to then communicate about this. If you ask me, I think it's a terrible move because nobody should be proud as a dating app to have maximized the number of swipes. Yeah.
No, that's true, and especially being, you know, happy, proud of that, and during this crisis, just showing volume is maybe not the best move. As you said, being modestly part of the crisis is, I guess, something nicer in terms of awareness. We've got a question from Victoria. Victoria, you can activate your microphone to speak.
Hey, thank you.
Hi,
Clémentine, and thank you. I actually joined in a bit late because I had to do something, so maybe I missed that kind of part of the presentation, but even though I have not been a user or ever, I'm just kind of curious, do you perceive, like, is your revenue model in a way like that you expand to other kind of countries and then, you know, try and find the new users? Because okay, maybe there will be saturation and kind of app hopping in between users that are typically on these kind of platforms. So I'm just curious about that kind of, you know, global footprint and expansion. And also, do you see yourself like long term in this, or is it a matter of 3 to 5 years and then you're on to something else? I'm just curious.
So on your first question, we are set up in a way that we can scale to any country at whatever moment in time. It's just a matter of just translating the app. It's virtually a few days of work, right? But if you want to do a great job in a country and you want your economics to be good, you need to make sure you have a good organic rate. So that means that people know your brand, have heard about the concept, found it cool, look for you in the stores and download it without you paying for them. And so it's super important to have this good organic to paid balance. And obviously we do paid acquisition as well. And that's the only way to run operations profitably. At least that's our take. Some others, you know, are in the business of spending millions, and you know, some of my competitors that you guys probably know have raised much more money than us and kind of virtually try to scale everywhere. But that's a bit of a dangerous business model, and to be honest, we don't have the cash to do this. So easy, I don't have the choice. So what we try to do is really to, you know, position ourselves in some really interesting markets, and we're adding one after the other, you know. Not
so maybe like focus more on kind of like retaining the current users and have them be like recurring customers and referrals and so on. So it's more kind of to get more out of the existing markets, right?
Right. I mean, the fact is, I mean, it's a fascinating topic, and I could talk about this for hours, but I'm not sure everyone is interested. But it's an acquisition game. Unfortunately, you cannot, unless exception, a dating app user for your app for a year. Okay, nobody does that because people they get tired. They use multiple apps at the same time. They're not single forever. They're very quick to churn. So it's really about how cheap your acquisition is and how qualitative it is. How you bring people that are actually truly interested with your app at the cheapest price possible. And obviously you can work a little bit on retention, but that's really marginal. You know, what is really important for your KPIs is really the acquisition. And to your second question, I'm a builder. So like, I'm really interested in cool products. What I love with Once is it's a brand with an opinion. And so I haven't shown this slide. Maybe I can show it to you for a second, but because it's really quick and it helps to make my point. Is what I did since I took over for Once. I'm interested in brands with opinions and brands that are really authentic. And I'm very convinced that brands that are good right now are brands that are really, have something in their guts, like, because they really believe in something, they want to change the world, and they're really authentic, really passionate about this. And that's how I am. So I would not, do just a business because I have to do it. I really want to, feel it.
Make
and
an
that's
impact.
And make an impact, and also be really sincere about this. Okay. And so and with Once, when I took over, on the left-hand side, this is how we were doing marketing. So this is an offline campaign. It's in French, sorry. It was January 19. And it says, once, one match a day. Thank you, Once. So it's a couple who met on Once. And they say this initial first date has been during for 3 years now. That's what it says. And so obviously it's cute, there's the logo, so you can attribute it easily, but it's very generic, right? Any dating app could claim this. Thank you, Thank you, Once, thank you, like, it's okay, people are happy, but it's not. So I realized when I took over that that was actually not part of the plan at all. But when I started thinking about this, I thought, well, we're lucky because we are a brand with an opinion. We think that that Tinder is broken and that people are deeply unhappy about this. That's my opinion. That's my personal opinion. And that was also my personal experience. So I was like, I need to kind of, let's just do this. Let's just dare
let's just build on that gut feel that you had, right?
Exactly. And also let's just be loud about this. So
maybe Clémentine, you should translate one of the stories that are on the right hand side for those.
So those stories, actually, I wanted to put the English version. I'm really stupid, sorry for that. So the stories say, once upon a time there was Rose who received an eggplant emoji and a drop emoji from her crush, and the end of the story. That's what it says. And then the other one is, once upon a time, there was Munia who received a compliment from her crush, copy-pasted to 540 other girls. And then the last one says, once upon a time, there was Kim who's been ghosted by her match after 15 seconds. The end. So this campaign's been like, it made a lot of noise in France, or at least, with the kind of budget I have, because and it was really cool to see users' feedback say like, yeah, you guys are kick asses, and in a sense of you have an opinion and you voice it, and I was like, yeah, that's what we do. That's what I want to do, because I think that's how it resonates. So that's a bit the red line I try to do. And so I will continue doing this as long as I feel I have potential to do this. I'm not saying I'm going to be the dating guru for the rest of my life. I'm not sure, but it's a fun space to be in.
Yeah, absolutely, and lots of transferable skills, like to other kind of consumer fields. So
yeah, I think so. Okay. And to be honest,
we are 12 minutes away from the hour plan for this workshop, so I would just let everyone be able to ask other questions if they feel to, so that I can just interrupt and say, hey, we've got something else. So David David, you can open your mic if you want, or I can read it for you. said have
Let's
been...
go there. I think Clémentine mentioned at some point like that these dating apps, in a way, taking advantage of a crisis, have a bad, are sending a bad message in some part of the public opinion. And I'm wondering what kind of strategy are you developing as a key player trying to stand out from the crowd, or maybe also as an industry trying to stick out together to deal with the opinion? Are you trying to confront them, ignore them, maybe joking about them?
You know, it's a really interesting question. I think it's almost a daily task, really. You know, when you because it's not a problem of this crisis or anyone. It's just the perception of dating apps as businesses are really, on average, relatively bad. You know, and that's a survey actually I did in January. It seems counterintuitive because when I sent this to my PR agencies, they were like, are you crazy? Because this survey was saying 83% of dating apps users are unsatisfied with their app. So they were like, so you run a business of a dating app and you're going to release in 4 languages a press release saying that people think you're doing shit? That's what is it? I was like, yeah, this is what I do. This is what I want to do, because I believe, it's not useful to just hide behind your finger or try to kind of, do some kind of a fake, speech around, how dating apps are marvelous and try to convince everyone else when everyone is not convinced. So I would rather kind of do the opposite and just take the freaking problem and try to show that we are modestly trying to be part of it. So to give you one example, one thing that is pretty annoying, it's not the only thing, but one thing that is pretty annoying, and since there's an audience of mostly ladies, maybe you ladies can relate to this, is dick pics. Okay, so for anyone who doesn't know, dick pics is just receiving, genitals from another person on your mobile or on your digital device, and so it doesn't have to be on dating apps, but it happens to be with people that you dated. And so I personally received, when I've been on dating apps, a lot of dick pics. Not that I'm particularly kind of sexy on my profiles, not at all, like absolutely not. And it happens, okay? So like one morning you wake up, I was like 7 a.m. So I'm dating still with I'm just doing dating apps just to, practice, right? To just get what's happening. And it was this guy who was like, yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm doing some works at home, blah, blah, blah. Oh, okay. So what are your plans for today? And then the guy sent me like the picture of him, with his virility. It was 7:15. I was in my bed. I was like, what's going on? And so I was so this is not that I'm was shocked for moral reasons. Like it's not a sexual topic. Okay. The issue is consent. Like no indication whatsoever was given from my end that I was ready or open to receive this kind of message. And it's even more shocking that it's forbidden. It's a crime. Like it's, in real life. Okay, so why would you do this on digital? So that's one of the topics that I found pretty annoying about dating apps. And I find it very annoying because also it's annoying only for women. Okay, because that's obviously something that's very asymmetrical. So if you ask the question to young women, so 18 to 35, 75% of them have received already in their life a dick pic, an unsolicited dick pic, which is kind of a crazy number, right? So what I did about this is I developed something in the app, in the chat, where whenever a nude, whatever part of the nudity is sent, it's detected, it's replaced by a kitten. Okay,
and people
so like
can
just a cute kitten, and and then it sends a message saying like it looks like you sent a nude. By default, the other is protected and receives a kitten, and you can unlock this feature if you want, because it's not about restricting exchanges. It's about consent.
And
so
question, and the one who is sending it can think about it another time and then remove it, or is it what you're expecting? Or
so like the other user is not going to see it at all, so he can he can send another picture if he wants of something that doesn't trigger the algorithm. And I'm saying he because it's mostly Ben, but like any user is one that we are predicting we are predicting users, and we take this initiative. And so yeah,
Clémentine,
so kind of,
yeah,
I hope you answered your question, David. Sorry.
Yeah, we have another question from Anne-Hélène Nicolas, but it's a little off topic, so maybe you can just finish by this one. I wanted to take a few minutes just to summarize all the ideas that you've been sharing with us today about how you, you know, as a business owner, as a non-marketing expert, because again, you are an engineer at first, manage now to organize your strategy and build something like that. So if I want to summarize, you've been talking about like work fast, take fast decision, launch and test, like it's really lean feature that you've been doing there, and have a voice, like own your specific voice. Do you have any other advice? Because I think you haven't been using much budget for that. Most of the people are saying, yeah, we had to cut the budget, so I can't do anything now without budget. So maybe if you can just, you know, summarize in few words, and then we'll go back to the last questions.
Mm. You know, when I was working at in my previous business life, I thought that I was really, really fast, you know, because I was crunching a lot of data, doing really complex stuff. And when I landed in the startup space, I found myself so slow. You know, I found myself so slow, just, you know, doing processes, making steps for decision, managing the risk. So I learned virtually in those last, it's been 4 years now, really learned how to kind of work faster. And it also means obviously making faster decisions, but also take acceptable risk, or make decisions about what risk is acceptable. So yeah, I mean, like, and I can give concrete examples, but I think I gave already a few ones. And I think
it was more just, you know, just summarizing the 4 or 5 key points so that everyone has that in mind before.
Yeah, and I think that applies, you know, kind of making shortcuts apply to product. Rethinking constantly your product is always helpful to, you know, to be closest to your customers. So second is constantly listen and pulse check your customers. I'm happy to share what tools I have for that, but it's very cost me zero virtually to pulse check customers and to make decisions about this. I have very kind of flexible and cost-efficient solutions to produce content. If that's helpful for your business, that's something I really recommend. And the 2 I mentioned today is PR agencies. They don't count in my staff, okay? They hired. And the second is a podcast producer. So I do the recruiting, but I have someone who's actually a journalist who reached out to me because she found my podcast cool, who's producing the podcast on her own. And that also helps to produce a lot of content, really see yourself as a media, and do it very cost efficiently and quickly.
Okay, we have 3 minutes left, so I think the Anne-Hélène's question is good to wrap up, really. So she's sorry, Anne-Hélène, do you want to ask it by yourself?
Yeah. Oh, hi. Thank you for all this. Just Clémentine, I just wanted to know, I mean, you're a smaller player, you're very qualitative, in front of big players who deal with volumes. But what do you see as the future for once? I mean, do you want to go big? Do you want to exit to bigger players? Do you want to remain an independent company? Do you want to, I don't know, what do you see next?
So it's a beautifully interesting question that is the one that keeps me up at night. Okay, obviously, as a business leader, and especially in this sphere, I think the reason I took over for Once is I wanted to bring Once to a position where you have choices. Okay, because what kills you as a small player with, you know, not unlimited access to funds, you know, only Tinder makes 300 million EBITDA a year. Okay, so like they really have big money, okay? And I never have anything of this. So I wanted to bring once to a position where you have choices. And now that I brought once to profitability, and made the adapted operations so that it works this way, I have a few more options, and it's possible to continue, being a niche player, growing, at your pace, and continue challenging the big ones. And that's actually a pretty nice home run that my investors would be happy to follow me on. And obviously exits would also be nice, but it's not as if I would be deciding. So we we are in contact with a lot of of the big ones. Obviously it's a bit M&A, it's a bit like dating, They're like, oh yeah, I looked at you, oh yeah, oh, maybe next year. Let's like, that's a bit, so you entertain the relationship, and obviously that's something we look very closely at. Yeah, we've been also very helpful to have, very happy to have to be supported by Partech, okay, who's been leading our 3 rounds. So yeah.
Thank you, Clémentine. We are reaching the hour. Thank you for sharing all your tips with us. That was super interesting. I think that everyone here who joined us are on, location or countries where you are implanted. So if you feel lonely during this lockdown, maybe it's time to find your love, your heart on once. So try maybe to use a slow dating app and change your mind. Thank you so much again. This session was recorded. It will be shared as always on our platform, blog, on YouTube, everywhere, so you can find it. And Clémentine, if you have resources, you've been talking about tools, about anything else, please share the links, and we'll be happy to like summarize that, to wrap up in an article.
Absolutely. I mean, personally, I'm sure this feedback is helpful to you, Gaël, as well. But I personally really love 50inTech, and how specific it can getting feedback and resources, and how to be better in your professional life. So if in this presentation there's been some concrete stuff you want to discuss further, feel free to connect directly, and I can then be specific about tools, ideas, whatever, structures.
Yeah, we'll share your profile in the article anyway.
Cool.
So
super.
You'll be easy to reach. Thanks everyone. On Thursday we've got another conference. It's going to be about enterprise sales. So if you want to join us, it's not a workshop but a conference, and we'll keep on going in the next week with new topics, conferences and workshops. So we hope to see you there.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye everyone.